Welcome, everyone. My name is Marcy Campos, and I'm joined by Ludy Grandas. We're both from American University. And the title of our session is Crossing Borders, Deepening Collaboration Between NGOs Serving the Immigrant Community and Universities Through Community-Based Learning. We're so glad to have you with us. Metropolitan areas such as Washington, D.C. are a hub for diverse immigrant communities. From the late 1970s, which was the Cold War era, to the current time, Central Americans have arrived to the D.C. area, which includes D.C., Maryland, and Virginia. University courses with community-based learning, sometimes called CBL, at their core, offer students the opportunity to deepen their understanding of the push and pull factors that drew people from El Salvador, Guatemala, and Honduras to this area. By engaging directly with the non-governmental organizations which serve the local Latino and Latin American community, students expand their global competencies and explore ways to address the myriad of challenges faced. NGOs are key to promoting the integration of migrants, refugees, and asylum seekers. Groups such as the Central American Resource Center, which provides citizenship training, and Trabajadores Unidos, or Workers United, which works directly with day laborers, help students understand the current climate faced by the immigrant community and the role of both direct service and community organizing. Courses such as ours, the Latino community of the DC metropolitan area, and Latina Migration, Identity, and Labor provide a good example of this powerful pedagogy. We will examine the key elements that make this experience impactful, reciprocal, and reflexive by building strong campus community collaboration and bridging differences related to class, race, and ethnicity. At the height of the U.S. national debate over immigration policy, this pedagogy brings a critical issue to life. So in today's presentation, we will be talking about community-based learning from theory to practice. I will share with you what my office does, the Center for Community Engagement and Service, around cultivating collaboration. We'll talk about some definitions, some criteria, and of course, the two courses that we already mentioned. Our definition for community-based learning is shown in the slide. CBL is an academic, course-based pedagogy that extends and deepens classroom-based learning through meaningful involvement with a community agency, nonprofit organization, or school. Through a planned collaboration, all stakeholders benefit from the CBL experience, both by meeting course objectives and addressing community-identified goals and needs. So my office is part of the Office of Campus Life on our campus, and we do a number of things in general as an office to help bridge the campus community divide, which exists so often in urban areas. We do a brunch every fall to connect faculty and 15 to 20 community agencies. We do a community partner fair in the fall and another one in the spring semester to bring together the agencies, bring them to campus, and have students and faculty have direct discussion. We've created a bunch of nonprofit directories, which basically means lists of nonprofit organizations by sector. So, for example, we created one about the Latino community, but we have others about senior citizens, economic development, race and ethnicity, youth and education, environmental issues, and many more. And then finally, once a year, we hold a community-based learning faculty institute, and we ask faculty to give us a full day to really think about why this pedagogy is so important and how to go about reshaping a course syllabus to integrate the most important components of CBL, or community-based learning. So this list has a bunch of criteria, and I don't really want to go through them all, but this is how we define what a CB, or community-based learning course, has to look like. And the two that I'm going to name here that I think are most important are reciprocity, that this approach needs to be good not only for the student who's going to get that experience and work in the community and build their resume, but it has to be valuable to the organization as well. Many nonprofit groups are short-staffed, and supervising a student takes time and work. So it has to be worth their effort. they need to get some new added value and skills. And many of our young people do offer those skills, but they need some guidance. And the second aspect or criteria that I want to name is it's so important to prepare students to work in the community, the city, the neighborhoods, diverse settings. There are so many issues related to race and class that arise, and many of our students haven't worked in urban areas before. Some of them are from towns, some are from monocultural areas. The majority of students are white, and they need some preparation to understand both the city, the dynamics, particularly Washington, D.C., which has, both the monuments and the museums, and also the neighborhoods and the history and the community and all those aspects. So that preparation is really important. But you can see the other criteria out on this slide. So the name of my course is the Latinx Community of the DC metro area. I've been teaching it for maybe about 9 years now. It's offered once a year, have usually 18 to 20 students who sign up. Many of those students are students who are interested in Latino and immigration issues, but others take it because they've heard about this phenomenon called community-based learning, and they're very drawn to it. So I would say maybe about a third of the class is Latino, usually Mexican, Peruvian, occasionally from El Salvador. What is my approach to working with partners? That's what I think will be unique in the sense that contrasting it with Ludy's approach. I let students pick the sites they want to work at based on what their needs and their issues are, as well as timing. So a lot of people would love to work with Latino children. Others might prefer to work with high school level young people. Or immigration. Of course, immigration is a huge topic, and many of our students want to either work on the hotline related to immigration needs. Sometimes they go to a detention center in another state and accompany lawyers. Sometimes they're doing translation. So my approach is to let students select where they're going, but of course that also means they have to do the outreach, and they have to introduce themselves, and they have to make sure it's a good match for the community partner. So here you will see a map of Washington, D.C., our capital city, which has about 700,000 people on the East Coast, and it's quite unique. As you know, it's the capital, but it's also a city with its own dynamics. D.C., Maryland, Virginia area, the total Latino or Hispanic population is just a little bit over 700,000, which is about 11.3% of the total population. This population has grown dramatically since 1980, and that's because of the wars in El Salvador in the 70s and early 80s that displaced so many people. And of course, U.S. foreign policy was a part of that policy because the U.S. government was often supporting right-wing and military governments. The top 3 Hispanic groups are Salvadoran, Mexican, and Guatemalan. What's also happened in that time period is there's been a huge growth of the nonprofit sector. So where you see on the right is a listing of groups like Ayuda, Carecen, Carlos Rosario Career Center, DC Doors, DC Jobs with Justice, Vida Spanish Senior Center. As you can see, there are many, many different agencies. Some of them are small, 2 or 3 people. Others have pretty hefty budgets and are doing very, very well. So this is a sampling of the places where my students have worked. So what does community-based learning look like for students in this class? Some, as I mentioned, do tutoring. Others might co-teach or lead, and English is a second language class. Some are working on a hotline. Some of them are, as I said, going to detention centers. Several have worked in high schools and helped young people apply to college, which might mean like working on a college essay or helping prepare for the SATs. Others have helped develop and cover cultural events in the city. We have a great group called Hola Cultura, and they host many, many different kinds of films and murals and tours and things like that. Others have helped work on organizing conferences. Others do research. So sometimes there's a think tank that says, can you help us do research on a particular immigration policy? So that has come up also. And I've also had students who help develop a curriculum for a nonprofit organization. So these are all examples of what it can actually look like. And again, I encourage students to tap into their own passions and their own skills to make that work. In this slide, you'll see 10 faces of different young people. So one of the pieces of my course, but also I open it to the entire campus, is a panel with a variety of young people who have come to the U.S. over the years. Some might have come as small children with their parents and crossed the border. Others have come in more recent years fleeing gangs or violence or seeking education opportunities, and often to reunite with family members who have been here for many years. So this is some of the people who have spoken on the panel. I find this is one of the most impactful parts of the course because here they're talking to peers, other young people who are 18, 19, 20, 21 years old, and hearing the challenges that these young men and women have gone through to get to this country, and how much they want to go to school, how much they want to go to college, how much they'd love to have jobs, and they face many challenges often because of their status. I'm ending with this quote because it shows how powerful the impact can be of this experience. This was Jennifer. She was tutoring at Next Step Public Charter School, which is for all immigrant people from different countries. I will never complain ever again. Not about my schoolwork, not about my job, not about my lack of sleep, not about anything in my perfectly perfect life. Today was the first day I really got to know Glenda and Gloria, the two women I tutor for the Spanish GED. Glenda, a 24-year-old mother of an adorable 5-year-old, wakes up every day at 3 a.m. so she can get to her job in Silver Spring, which starts at 6 a.m. She gets off work at 4, then goes to the charter school from 6 to 9 p.m. She goes to bed at 11 p.m., then starts the cycle all over again. Eres super mujer was the only response I could gasp out. You're a superwoman. Cecilia, 20 years old, wakes up at 3 a.m. every morning so she can get to her job at a fruit packing factory in Baltimore, which starts at 6 a.m. She also gets off at 4, commutes back to D.C. to attend school from 6 to 9 p.m. She goes to bed at 10 or 11, then does it all over again 6 days a week. These women had patiently listened to me complain about how tired I was from my classes and schoolwork with complete and utter genuine sympathy so many times when their lives and situations were so much worse. I now know who my heroes are. Because of the cards I was dealt, I am not them, but I easily could have been. Thank you, and now I will pass this on to Ludy to share her course.
Hello, my name is Ludy Grandas. In continuing with this presentation, I just want to provide some context on the reason for my course and its connection to the community. Since the 1990s, Latin American immigration has served well the political, economic, and even cultural agenda of politicians left, center, and right, with what seems an eternal debate on immigration reform in the US. Those debates conveniently omit the fact that after years of US colonialist interventions, or rather neo-colonialist interventions, Honduras, Guatemala, and El Salvador have fallen into a spiral of civil war, debt, inflation, unemployment, and increasing everyday violence perpetuated both by the government forces and now transnational organized crime. These factors push thousands to migrate north, where they are not welcome but are insatiably sought after for their cheap labor. Upon arrival in the U.S., these Latin American migrants become labeled Latinos or Hispanics, and for many, a first step into the job market is as day laborers. That is, they live by the day wage. The dimensions of the day labor market are fluid. On a daily basis, new workers enter this market while others leave it. Similarly, hiring sites diminish in size or disappear while new ones emerge. Day laborers perform a variety of low-skilled manual jobs, and alongside nannies, domestic workers, garment workers, gardeners, busboys, caregivers, and janitors, They form part of the low-skilled laborers working within the U.S.'s informal economy. The day laborers in Washington, D.C. congregate every day of the year, rain or shine, in the parking lot of the famous construction supply store Home Depot. While searching for work, they risk arrest, fines, exploitation, hunger, and even deportation. However, unlike other curb sites in the country, great efforts are being made in the U.S., in Washington, D.C., to integrate late laborers into the larger community by creating a sense of belonging through the organization Workers United or Trabajadores Unidos of Washington, D.C. The dynamic just described drives my course on Latino migration, identity, and labor in Washington, D.C. It is a class taught in Spanish, and it is taught once a year, and I usually have about in between 12 to 15 students. The course proposes to identify the ways in which theories of race, identity, labor, and social class inform and connect with our daily lives, including the daily lives of the day laborers. There are several requirements to the course, but one of the most important ones is that they have to use 20 hours of direct contact with the community. In this case, for me, it's direct contact with the day laborer community. They have to write reflection papers, which is one of the bases of community-based learning. They also have to write academic papers, and they have to, at the end of the semester, do a formal presentation of the projects completed during the semester. The day laborers are guests of honor to that occasion. Workers United of Washington, D.C., my community partner, has been fighting for the day laborers' rights and has achieved to empower the day laborers to become leaders of the organization and to form community. It has been a difficult process, but the day laborers feel less alone. Alongside the organization and the day laborers themselves, my students have assisted them in solving cases of wage theft, immigration by providing, for instance, interpretation services, doing research for driver's licenses, for the formation of cooperatives and the construction of workers' centers. They have conducted phone and in-person interviews with the day laborers. They have helped in organizing and taking photo IDs for the day laborers. We also have created bilingual newsletters, booklets with basic information about construction, leaflets with all sorts of information relevant to the well-being of the day laborers. But one very important aspect that the organization also insists upon is that day laborers should be seen as more than day laborers, but as people who have other sorts of aspirations. And so we have also incorporated art into the activism of the organization. So for that, we borrowed the term artivism. A very important task that both the community partner alongside my courses has been able to do is to visualize through art the everyday life of the day laborers. Artivism, in this sense, responds to local and global injustices through the lens of creative expression. Artivism can be used to fight any political or social injustice in a way that allows for a raw emotional and multi-layered understanding of the issue. Through a photo exhibit displayed at the Katze Museum in Washington, D.C., the laborers themselves were the photographers of their daily lives. We intended to help remove the negative stereotypes that plague Latin American migrants in the U.S. Here are some of the photos that they took. Intended from the beginning to be itinerant, we took the exhibit to the corner of the supply store where the day laborers can see themselves and their friends as artists. It is always a great experience for students, day laborers, and the organization to visit the corner. We have been using the humanities track as a vehicle to get close to the community, to share and to learn. So why is community engagement with the immigrant community so important, and for us to the Latino community? Because there are about 59 million Latino immigrants that are accounted for, but there are also about 11 million who are undocumented and for whom services are very sketchy, and it is important for us to also be present for them. Under the current administration, we know that the pathway to legal immigration has been dramatically reduced, leaving out so many people who could potentially become legal residents or citizens, and it has been completely undermined. Also, the conditions at the border between Mexico and the US, and also Guatemala and Mexico, those borders are terrible zones right now, and they have been deteriorating as time goes. And I'm sure you have seen horrible photos of children being taken away from their parents. The case of the deferred action for childhood arrivals is pending at the Supreme Court. These are the migrants that came as children and are now grown-ups, but they cannot be fully immersed into the society here because they are not documented. And so that's another fight. So also there is a lot of anti-immigrant rhetoric, and hate crimes are on the rise, and that is something that we struggle with. And I think that by doing some projects with the community, especially artistic projects, I think that will help educate the people who are not very knowledgeable about these communities. Conditions of inequality around health and education and poverty have worsened and has been shown in plain sight during the COVID pandemic. And we know that the low-income communities have been the highest affected. And so we know that the Latino community right now is under great duress. In this sense, universities, we believe, have a social responsibility to address real societal problems. And courses such as Marcy's and mine are trying to get the message across through both learning and hands-on experience. Thank you.